Got him a quarterback. They done got rid of Stefanski and Tim McCarver's daughter, and now we good. That's right. I really do don't want to know what was the man's issue, though. Somebody sees what's the handwriting on the wall. That's why they making a change. It's very simple. Somebody better see something up there. The mistake at the lake. Come on. You got a quarterback. You got a franchise quarterback in that thing. No matter about what temperature it is, no matter how about wet it is, grown gonna play. Some people are just born to do certain things, and that young man was born to play quarterback.
Shedeur's our quarterback, and we have a healthy Deshaun.
So you say even if Deshaun Watson is healthy, it's Shedeur for sure for you?
For me, Shedeur is the quarterback that we all seen the potential for him to be. He just adds so many other kids want to come and see him play.
Monty Marshall back in the game, does a nice job picking up the blitz. Sanders throws, touchdown, Davis again.
Cleveland might have a real quarterback situation brewing right now, and not the kind people expected a few months ago. Because while most of the football world came into this offseason assuming the Browns already knew exactly who QB1 would be, somebody forgot to tell Shedeur Sanders the script was supposedly finished. And now, the entire conversation around this team is starting to change fast. See, the national media spent months building this very clean, very comfortable narrative. Deshaun Watson was expected to walk right back into the starting role because that's what veterans with massive contracts usually do. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders was viewed as the rookie who would sit back, absorb information, smile during interviews, and slowly develop somewhere in the background. Basically, people expected him to be invisible for a while. Yeah, that lasted about 5 minutes. Because through the first 3 days of Browns OTAs, Shedeur Sanders has not looked like a quarterback trying to eventually compete. He's looked like somebody actively trying to take the job right now. And the wildest part is, the coaching staff doesn't seem interested in slowing that momentum down at all. That's where this story gets really interesting. Because NFL coaches do not accidentally give young quarterbacks extra opportunities. This league is way too serious for that. Every snap matters. Every rep matters. Every decision during practice tells you something about what coaches are actually thinking behind closed doors. And right now, the Browns are telling everybody something without technically saying a word. Shedeur Sanders is getting serious opportunities with the first-team offense. Let that sink in for a second.
The issue with Deshaun Watson wasn't that he didn't look good in practice when he was here before. It didn't look good. The problem wasn't could he throw the wide open receivers in practice. The problem wasn't did the ball look good coming out of his hand, or could he call a play in the huddle. Those are prerequisites. Of course it will be. He's a professional football player. You don't think he could throw the ball? Listen, it's guys right now that Tom Brady can get up out of there in his bed and throw a nice football today into the layman that looked like he should be playing in the league. The problem wasn't that. The problem with Deshaun Watson when he was actually playing was the simple fact that Deshaun Watson, when the bullets started flying, when the pass rush started getting to him, when his timing, when his rhythm, when his confidence, when his cadence, when the ball placement, when the accuracy, when the mobility floundered under pressure. You tell me nothing about what's happening if I don't put pressure on you.
This is not some preseason charity program where coaches hand rookies a few extra snaps so everybody can clap politely afterward. These reps matter. If a quarterback is getting time with the starters, it means the staff wants to see how he handles the real operation. Timing, pressure, defensive disguises, communication, tempo, leadership, everything. And apparently Shedeur Sanders keeps answering the questions correctly. Now let's rewind for a second because the context here matters a lot. When Shedeur Sanders dropped in the draft and landed in Cleveland, a lot of analysts immediately acted like the football universe had corrected itself. There was this attitude of, see, this proves the concerns were real. Suddenly people talked like his draft position automatically defined his ceiling. But football doesn't care where somebody was drafted once practice starts. The field has a funny way of exposing fake narratives real quick. And that's exactly what seems to be happening right now inside Browns camp. Because the version of Shedeur Sanders people try to describe before the draft doesn't really match the quarterback showing up at OTAs. Instead of looking overwhelmed, he looks comfortable. Instead of looking hesitant, he looks decisive. Instead of playing scared, he's attacking throws with confidence. Honestly, the kid looks like he walked into the facility already knowing half the doubters were waiting for him to fail, and decided to make practice extremely uncomfortable for them instead. Day one was the first sign that something felt different. At first, people tried to brush it off. Typical football logic. Relax, it's only one practice. Fair enough. One good day in shorts doesn't suddenly make somebody a superstar. Everybody understands that. But even on day one, there were moments that made people stop and pay attention. The timing looked sharp. The footwork looked clean. The ball placement looked polished. More importantly, the decision-making looked fast. That's the part that really stood out. Shedeur Sanders wasn't sitting there double-clutching every throw like a rookie trying to solve calculus in front of 80,000 people. The ball was coming out on time, and in the NFL, timing is everything. Defensive windows close fast at this level. You can't spend 3 business days thinking about every throw. By the time you hesitate, a safety is already driving downhill looking to ruin your afternoon. But Shedeur kept processing quickly. Read, plant, fire, repeat. And then came day 2. Which is when things started getting awkward for the Watson is automatically QB1 crowd. Because now the completion percentages coming out of practice weren't just solid, they were impressive. Shedeur Sanders was reportedly completing passes at a higher rate while seeing many of the same defensive looks as Watson. Again, same practice field, same defense, same coaches watching every rep. That matters. And here's the part people really can't ignore anymore. Shedeur Sanders started receiving more first-team reps than many expected this early in the process. That's not random. Coaches don't pull names out of a helmet before practice like it's a halftime raffle giveaway at a basketball game. Every rep is earned, especially at quarterback. If one player starts gaining more opportunities with the starters, it means the coaching staff wants deeper evaluation. Period. NFL coaches are obsessed with information. They want evidence. They want consistency. They want to know who gives the offense the best chance to operate efficiently. And apparently, Shedeur Sanders keeps giving them reasons to look longer. Then day 3 happened. And honestly, this was the day people really started talking. Because there was one particular throw over the middle that perfectly showed why this competition suddenly feels way more serious than people expected. It was a tight window completion where the defense clearly knew what was coming. Everybody was in position. The coverage was closing fast. Most quarterbacks either hesitate or throw safe in that situation, not Shedeur Sanders. He trusted the read and ripped the pass anyway. And the placement? Perfect. Not just catchable, not just good enough.
You see playmaking ability. I think you see a player that is confident in his skill set. So when you see that playmaking ability and inner confidence, you say, okay, there's something to work with there. So that I think that's the thing that excites you. I said it this morning that 15 or 20 years ago, they would have said that Shedeur Sanders was.
The ball was placed exactly where only the receiver could realistically make a play on it. That's high-level quarterback stuff right there. That's the kind of throw coaches replay in film sessions while the room suddenly gets very quiet. Because accuracy in the NFL is not just about completing passes. It's about control, placement, anticipation, understanding leverage before defenders even react. That throw had all of it. And look, mechanics can improve over time, coaches can help clean up footwork, they can adjust release angles, they can speed up processing with experience, but certain instincts, you either have them or you don't. The ability to recognize a tiny passing lane, trust your eyes under pressure, and deliver the football confidently before the window fully opens. That's natural quarterback feel. You can't manufacture that in a laboratory somewhere, and right now Shedeur Sanders is showing flashes of it early, which explains why the energy around this quarterback battle suddenly feels completely different than it did a month ago. Because this no longer feels like a rookie politely waiting for his turn. This feels like a young quarterback showing up to compete immediately, and making the entire building take notice. What really stood out from the day 3 reports was this simple realization. The traits people questioned about Shedeur Sanders suddenly don't look questionable anymore. In fact, they're starting to look like legitimate strengths. And once the deep ball sessions started showing up in practice reports, you could almost hear the old pre-draft narratives quietly falling apart in real time. Because those throws? Those were not lucky heaves down the sideline hoping a receiver turns into a superhero. Those were real quarterback throws. The touch on the ball, the timing, the arc, the placement. Everything looked controlled.
Take another step and keep growing and learning. I think he's had a really nice offseason. He did a really nice job at voluntary minicamp. I think his improvements in decision-making and pocket management by the end of the year, and certainly what we've seen so far in a very short spring, have been positive. And I expect him to have more command of the offense. and better ball security and situational awareness as we go into year.
That's the difference between somebody who can technically throw deep and somebody who naturally understands how to pass a football at a high level. There are quarterbacks who throw deep balls like they're launching t-shirts into the crowd during a timeout. Just pure chaos. Everybody looking up praying the thing lands somewhere useful. But Shedeur Sanders' throws reportedly had shape to them, rhythm, purpose. The football wasn't just arriving downfield. It was landing softly into space where receivers could actually keep moving after the catch instead of stopping, spinning around, and fighting for balance like somebody stepping on ice for the first time. That matters way more than people realize, because in the NFL, a deep ball is not just about arm strength. Honestly, plenty of quarterbacks can throw the football 60 yards. Fans see that at combines every year. A dude launches one into orbit, and suddenly social media starts acting like they discovered the next Hall of Famer. But real NFL passing is about control. Can you layer the football over defenders? Can you drop it between coverage zones? Can you throw with anticipation before the receiver is fully open? Can you adjust velocity depending on the route angle and leverage? That's the real art of quarterback play. And according to everything coming out of Browns OTAs, Shedeur Sanders has been showing flashes of exactly that kind of natural passing ability. Not once either.
This team with the fourth place schedule and all the things going on, there's a chance they could be, a lot better than people think if they get, adequate, not quarterbacks you win because of, quarterbacks you win with, which there's very few you win because of. They just need a guy you can win with, and he can be on the lower end early on of a guy you can win with because his defense is going to be so good. Physically, Deshaun looks good to me, and it doesn't mean he'll stay healthy, but that tells me if Shedeur wins that he beat out a healthy Deshaun. That's good for the Browns. And if Deshaun plays, it tells you he's healthy and playing at a high level again. That's good for the Browns. So the idea of having one guy or the other, for me, that's not the case. It's what guy gives you the best chance to win in Jacksonville in early September. That's all these coaches are thinking about, and nothing else matters. And that's what I like about, that's why he's irritated, because this is not conversation most people have. They just want to win. Whoever wins is going to be the guy who plays. And that's it. And if, Shedeur is going to have to practice better. If we all know Watson's going to practice great and then not playing the game great, well, that's the only thing that Todd Monken knows is how they practice. So the guy who practices better is going to play because the history doesn't mean anything.
That's the important part. This wasn't some random highlight everybody replayed 400 times because football fans are starving for off-season content. These reports kept describing consistency. Multiple reps, multiple situations, multiple successful throws against real defensive looks. That changes the conversation completely. Because one flashy throw gets attention, consistent quarterback play gets coaches excited. And honestly, you can feel the growing curiosity around what this offense could eventually become if the Browns lean into Shedeur's strengths. That's the part that probably has defensive coordinators quietly uncomfortable already. Because if a rookie is processing this quickly during OTAs, what happens after months inside an NFL playbook? That's where things start getting scary for opposing defenses. And then there's the quick passing game, which honestly may be the most impressive part of this entire situation. Because the quick game exposes everything about a quarterback immediately. There's nowhere to hide there. No extra time, no long dramatic rollout. No backyard football nonsense where a quarterback runs around for 8 seconds waiting for somebody to magically get open. The quick game is basically football speed chess. You either recognize the defense instantly and react correctly, or the entire play explodes in your face before the receiver even finishes the route. That's why coaches obsess over timing in this part of the offense. The quarterback has to diagnose coverage before the snap, confirm it after the snap, and release the football almost instantly. If he hesitates for even a second, the whole rhythm collapses. And apparently Shedeur Sanders has been operating that system fast. Like, veteran-level fast. Reports keep describing him getting the ball out before defenses can fully rotate or disguise coverage. That's a huge deal because NFL defenses survive on confusion. Defensive coordinators spend entire nights drinking coffee and inventing ways to make quarterbacks question what they're seeing. Sometimes they show blitz and drop out. Sometimes they disguise safeties. Sometimes they bait quarterbacks into throws that look open for half a second before suddenly becoming interceptions. It's basically organized psychological warfare, but Shedeur Sanders reportedly looks calm against it. His pre-snap reads have looked sharp enough that once the ball is snapped, the decision-making becomes automatic. Catch, plant, throw, done. That's dangerous football. Because once a quarterback starts consistently beating defensive rotations with timing, the offense suddenly becomes really difficult to slow down. The defense can't disguise fast enough because the football is already gone before the adjustment fully develops. And offensive coordinators love that. Seriously, coaches dream about quarterbacks like that. Todd Monken probably wakes up smiling thinking about route combinations when the timing works correctly. That's the kind of quarterback play that turns a stressful Tuesday film session into a fun brainstorming session instead. And speaking of Monken, people really need to pay closer attention to what he's been saying publicly during these OTAs, because Todd Monken is not some rookie assistant coach trying to hype up a young quarterback for attention. This is an experienced football mind who has been around every type of quarterback situation imaginable. He's coached at high levels for years. He's seen talented players fail. He's seen overlooked players shock everybody. He knows the difference between practice hype and legitimate NFL readiness. That's important. Because every offseason, fans fall in love with training camp stories. Somebody completes 3 nice passes in shorts and suddenly people start planning Super Bowl parades by lunchtime. Coaches know better than that. Experienced coordinators usually keep their public comments measured because they understand how quickly hype can spiral out of control. Which is why Monken's tone matters here. When a veteran offensive mind starts speaking positively about a young quarterback's development this early, people inside the league notice it. Coaches protect their credibility carefully. They don't casually throw praise around like confetti at a championship parade, especially not at quarterback. So if Todd Monken sounds encouraged by what he's seeing from Shedeur Sanders, it's probably because the film is backing it up. And honestly, the biggest thing standing out through all these OTA reports isn't just the throws themselves. It's the comfort level. Shedeur Sanders does not look overwhelmed by the moment. He doesn't look sped up. He doesn't look like a rookie drowning in information. He looks prepared. That's the part nobody really expected this quickly. Because remember, the original assumption was that Cleveland drafted a long-term project. Somebody who would need patience, development, and plenty of time before realistically competing for serious reps. Instead, this thing already feels way more competitive than the public expected. And whether people want to admit it or not, every sharp throw, every quick read, every strong OTA report adds more pressure to the quarterback conversation inside that building. What Todd Monken has been saying about Shedeur Sanders during these OTAs honestly tells you almost everything you need to know about how serious this quarterback battle has become. And it's not just the praise itself. Coaches compliment players all the time. That part alone is nothing new. It's the way Monken is talking about him that jumps out. Because this isn't generic football coach talk like he's working hard, or we like his attitude, or the classic offseason line everybody hears every single year. He's improving every day. Coaches hand those quotes out like Halloween candy. This feels different. Monken has been extremely specific when discussing Shedeur Sanders' growth. He's talking about processing speed at the line of scrimmage. He's talking about understanding the structure of the offense. He's talking about recognizing why concepts exist, how plays connect together, and how quarterbacks manipulate defenses within the system. That's advanced quarterback conversation. That's not how coaches talk about somebody they expect to hold a clipboard for 2 years while learning the basics. That's how coaches talk when a young quarterback is already showing he can actually run the offense. And honestly, that's the part that probably shocked people inside the building the most. Because based on the outside narrative, Shedeur Sanders was supposed to arrive in Cleveland looking overwhelmed by NFL complexity. That's what a lot of critics hinted at before the draft. There were constant questions about whether his game would translate fast enough, whether he could adjust to NFL speed, whether he was walking into a system that would expose weaknesses people assumed existed. Instead, reports coming out of OTAs describe somebody who looks comfortable operating the offense already. That changes everything. Monken basically described a quarterback who didn't walk into camp trying to figure things out. He described somebody who showed up prepared, somebody who already understands the system well enough to play quickly instead of overthinking every snap. And football people know exactly how important that is, because quarterback hesitation kills offenses. The second a QB starts doubting what he sees, the entire rhythm falls apart. Timing disappears. Protection breaks down. Receivers lose sync. Suddenly, a play designed for 6 easy yards turns into chaos and somebody on sports talk radio spends 3 hours screaming about it the next morning. But Shedeur Sanders reportedly hasn't looked hesitant. He's looked decisive. That's a massive difference. And honestly, Monken's comments sound way less like a coach describing a developmental prospect, and way more like a coach realizing his rookie quarterback might be ahead of schedule in a very serious way. Now here's the part that really grabbed my attention. Monken didn't just praise Shedeur Sanders' play. He directly pushed back against the outside narrative surrounding the quarterback competition itself. That matters more than people realize, because for months, The football world basically treated this QB battle like one of those fake movie competitions where everybody already knows who wins before the contest even starts. The assumption was that Deshaun Watson's starting role was already locked in because of contract status, experience, and organizational investment. The competition was mostly being framed like a formality, like the Browns were simply going through the motions so they could eventually say, well, we evaluated everybody, and obviously the veteran is QB1. That was the public expectation. But Todd Monken basically came out and said, not so fast. He made it clear the predetermined narrative was coming from outside the building, not inside it. That's a huge distinction, because coaches usually avoid stepping directly into media storylines unless they genuinely feel strongly about something. And Monken sounded serious. He emphasized that the competition is real. He emphasized that football decisions will decide the job, not contracts, not media expectations, not offseason assumptions, not prior headlines. Just football. And honestly, a coach who already knows exactly how this ends usually doesn't go out of his way to publicly shut down a narrative like that. Think about it. If the Browns internally viewed Watson as the unquestioned starter, no matter what, it would have been very easy for Monken to dodge those questions with boring, safe answers. Coaches do it all the time. Short responses, generic statements. Move on to the next topic. Instead, he addressed the situation directly. That tells me something important is happening behind closed doors. Because Monken sounds like somebody who believes Shedeur Sanders has forced this competition into being far more legitimate than many expected. And honestly, when you zoom out and look at the entire journey Shedeur walked into, the mental side of all this becomes even crazier. People forget how brutal the draft process became around him. Every time another quarterback got selected ahead of him, it turned into another television segment questioning his value. Every slide down the draft board became proof for critics who had already decided something was wrong. Analysts kept repeating concerns about attitude, system fit, Colorado, media attention, and everything else people could attach to his name. At one point, it honestly felt like some people were more interested in debating narratives than evaluating football. And once teams kept passing on him, the conversation snowballed. That's how the draft works sometimes. One team passes, then another, then suddenly everybody starts acting like there must be some giant hidden issue nobody can explain clearly. It becomes groupthink. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders just kept sitting there hearing his talent questioned over and over again on national television. That's tough for anybody. And then once Cleveland finally drafted him, the immediate reaction from many analysts was basically, well, this is actually perfect because now he can quietly sit behind the established veteran and develop slowly. Notice what happened there. Even after he landed somewhere, expectations were still immediately lowered around him. The assumption was never, can he compete right away? The assumption was, how long before he's ready to compete? That's a completely different conversation. Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson continued being framed publicly as the clear favorite before OTAs even started. The media discussion sounded almost predetermined, like the competition existed mostly for appearances. But the crazy part is, none of those assumptions were based on actual practice evidence yet. They were guesses, narratives, predictions. And now OTAs are starting to disrupt all of it. Because while the public spent months debating what Shedeur Sanders supposedly couldn't do, the Browns coaching staff has now watched him operate their offense firsthand. That's different than draft speculation. Film doesn't care about narratives. The field doesn't care about hot takes. Either the quarterback can play or he can't. And right now, every report coming out of Cleveland suggests Shedeur Sanders is making life very uncomfortable for anybody who assumed this competition was already over before it started. Now imagine the mental pressure attached to all this for a second. You're 22 years old. You just went through one of the most public draft slides in recent memory. You heard criticism nonstop. Your leadership got questioned. Your talent got questioned. People even tried to minimize your college success by attaching it entirely to your father and the Colorado program. Then you walk into your first NFL building already hearing people say another quarterback is the obvious starter. That's a lot to carry mentally. And instead of shrinking under that pressure, Shedeur Sanders seems to be responding by playing some of the sharpest football of the entire quarterback room. Honestly, this is the part of the story that impresses me the most. Because most players, even talented players, hardworking players, future stars, eventually let outside pressure sneak into their game a little bit. That's human nature. When people spend months questioning you publicly, doubting your talent, debating whether you even belong in the conversation, eventually some of that noise usually creeps into the performance. Maybe the quarterback hesitates for half a second longer. Maybe the confidence fades just enough to affect timing. Maybe the player starts trying not to fail instead of simply playing free. That happens all the time in professional sports. And the scary part is, Once confidence starts slipping, the critics suddenly look right. The exact narrative people push suddenly creates the outcome they predicted in the first place. Then everybody acts like the struggles appeared out of nowhere when the pressure itself helped shape the situation. But Shedeur Sanders has refused to give people that moment. That's what stands out right now. He hasn't shown up looking nervous. He hasn't looked mentally rattled. He hasn't played like somebody carrying the weight of draft criticism on his shoulders. If anything, the reports coming out of Cleveland make it sound like all the doubt somehow sharpened him instead of breaking him down. And honestly, that mindset is dangerous, because some athletes hear criticism and start shrinking under it. Other athletes hear criticism and quietly turn it into motivation. The second type is the one coaches love because those players usually develop a different kind of edge. Not loud, fake toughness for social media, real competitive edge. The kind where somebody remembers everything people said about them and then answers through performance instead of talking. And that's exactly what Shedeur Sanders seems to be doing right now. Every accurate throw, every quick read, every clean rep against the defense, every moment where he processes the field faster than expected. All of it feels like a football response to months of criticism. Not interviews, not dramatic speeches, not cryptic social media posts with mysterious emojis and rap lyrics underneath. Just football. Honestly, that's the best way to handle doubters in this league anyway. NFL locker rooms respect production more than talking. Coaches respect execution more than headlines. If a quarterback keeps making the correct reads and delivering the ball on time, eventually people inside the building stop caring about outside narratives. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is forcing people to pay attention through his actual play. Now, to be fair, there are still going to be people trying to downplay everything happening during OTAs. And look, some of those points are reasonable. Nobody should act like spring practices automatically predict regular season greatness. Football doesn't work like that. OTAs are different. Players aren't in full pads yet. Defenses operate with restrictions. Coaches keep things more controlled. The physical intensity is nowhere near what players experience once training camp and preseason games arrive. That's true, and eventually tougher moments are coming. That's unavoidable for every young quarterback. Once the full playbook opens up, the game gets harder. Defensive disguises get nastier. Pressure packages become more complex. Mistakes happen. Bad reads happen. Interceptions happen. Every rookie quarterback in NFL history has moments where the defense humbles them a little bit. That's part of development. Even elite quarterbacks looked rough at times early in their careers. Fans sometimes forget that because everybody only remembers the highlights years later. Nobody posts the ugly rookie film sessions once somebody becomes a superstar. But here's the key difference. The criticism surrounding Shedeur Sanders before the draft was never mainly about physical toughness or whether he could survive preseason intensity. Most people agreed he had talent. The real debate centered around his processing speed. That was the big question. Could he read NFL defenses quickly enough? Could he process information fast enough? Could he make decisions under pressure without the offense stalling out? And honestly, through these first OTA reports, that's exactly the area where he seems to be impressing people the most. That's why this situation suddenly feels so important. Because if the exact weakness critics kept focusing on is actually becoming a strength early on, then the entire evaluation starts changing fast. And you can already feel some people getting uncomfortable about it. Because once a quarterback starts consistently processing quickly, the offense opens up in a completely different way. Timing improves, confidence spreads through the huddle. Receivers trust the ball is coming on time, coaches become more aggressive with play design. Everything speeds up. That's why NFL coaches obsess over quarterback processing more than almost anything else. Arm strength gets attention from fans, but coaches care about decision-making speed because modern defenses are brutal. Defensive coordinators spend all week trying to create confusion. They disguise coverage, rotate safeties late, bait quarterbacks into mistakes, and basically turn every snap into a giant mental puzzle. Quarterbacks who process slowly get exposed fast. But quarterbacks who diagnose quickly? Those are the guys who make defenses panic. And according to what's coming out of Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders has looked surprisingly comfortable operating at that speed already. That's a big deal, because the NFL game is less about throwing power than people think. Plenty of quarterbacks can throw the football through a brick wall. Congratulations. That doesn't automatically make somebody a franchise quarterback. The real challenge is mental speed. Can you recognize leverage instantly? Can you identify coverage rotations before they fully develop? Can you anticipate where the defense is trying to trap you? Can you react without hesitation when the picture changes after the snap? That's the stuff that separates quarterbacks at this level. And honestly, one reason the Browns coaching staff probably sounds encouraged right now is because those mental traits are much harder to teach than mechanics. Coaches can tweak footwork, they can clean up throwing motion, they can adjust timing. But natural field processing? That's harder. Some quarterbacks just see the game differently, and early reports suggest Shedeur Sanders might be one of those players. Now, does that automatically guarantee he's about to become the Browns' long-term superstar quarterback? Of course not. Football is way too unpredictable for anybody to make declarations that early. There's still a long road ahead. Training camp matters. Preseason matters. Consistency matters. At the end of the day, the biggest question around Shedeur Sanders was never really about talent. Nobody seriously doubted whether he could throw the football or make plays physically. The real concern people kept bringing up was the mental side of the game. Could he process NFL defenses fast enough? Could he handle complex coverages? Could he operate a professional offense without looking overwhelmed? That was the criticism people leaned on the most because before OTAs started, nobody had real NFL evidence to prove otherwise. But now, after these first few practices in Cleveland, that exact argument is starting to fall apart fast, because the reports coming out of Browns camp don't describe a rookie struggling to survive the transition. They describe a quarterback looking comfortable inside the system already, calm, sharp, decisive. That matters a lot. Shedeur Sanders doesn't look like somebody panicking every time the defense changes coverage. He doesn't look frozen at the line trying to process information. Instead, he looks prepared. The ball is coming out quickly. The reads look clean. The offense keeps moving. And honestly, that's the biggest surprise of this entire situation. Because people expected him to need a long adjustment period. They expected him to sit quietly behind Deshaun Watson while learning the NFL game slowly over time. Instead, he's making this competition feel very real. And here's the important part. This isn't just about one flashy highlight throw going viral online. Coaches don't care about social media clips with dramatic music and fire emojis everywhere. They care about consistency. Can the quarterback run the offense properly? Can he recognize defenses quickly? Can he make good decisions under pressure? Can teammates trust him snap after snap? That's what matters inside NFL buildings. And right now, Shedeur Sanders seems to be giving the Browns coaching staff more confidence every single practice. That's why Todd Monken's comments stand out so much. Because experienced coaches are usually careful when talking publicly about quarterbacks. They know fans overreact to everything. One compliment turns into future superstar headlines within 5 minutes, but Monken hasn't sounded like somebody discussing a long-term project. He's sounded like somebody talking about a quarterback who's genuinely pushing the competition forward right now. That changes the entire conversation. Because for months, the public narrative treated Deshaun Watson as the automatic starter before OTAs even began. The assumption was that this competition mostly existed for appearances while Watson remained firmly in control of the job. But football doesn't care about off-season assumptions. Once practice starts, coaches have to trust what they actually see on the field. And apparently what they're seeing from Shedeur Sanders has been impressive enough to create real momentum. That's why this story feels bigger than a normal rookie off-season headline. The people inside the Browns facility, the coaches watching every throw, every read, every adjustment, seem to be telling a very different story than the one the outside world spent months repeating. And honestly, that difference matters. Because before the draft, most of the conversation around Shedeur Sanders was built on opinions and projections. People decided what kind of quarterback he was before he ever took a professional snap. Now actual football is entering the discussion. And football exposes everything. The field doesn't care about pre-draft narratives. Defensive coordinators don't care about television debates. The film either supports the player or it doesn't. And right now, the early film coming out of Cleveland seems to be supporting Shedeur Sanders in a serious way. That's why this moment feels important, because what we might be watching is a young quarterback rewriting a story people already finished writing for him months ago. He got doubted publicly, criticized publicly, questioned constantly. And instead of letting that pressure break his confidence, he walked into Browns OTAs and started answering everything the best possible way. With football. Not with speeches, not with excuses, not with social media drama, just performance. And honestly, that's the part people respect most in this league. NFL locker rooms don't care about narratives for very long. Eventually, everything comes down to one simple question: can you play? Through these first OTA practices, Shedeur Sanders is making it very clear that if somebody wants to take this opportunity away from him, they're going to have to earn it on the field. Because right now, the quarterback battle in Cleveland suddenly looks a whole lot more interesting than anybody expected. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think Shedeur Sanders is already changing the Browns QB competition faster than expected? Or do you still believe Deshaun Watson stays firmly in control of the job? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Browns updates and NFL coverage.